What's up, guys? Chance Romance and Hanson here checking in, letting you know that I'm doing a live segment today, and I'm going to let you all listen in and intervene with what's going on here. So stay tuned and let me know if you can or cannot hear me. Where's the best place for this?
So why don't you do it here? Use the you do it like that. Perfect.
What's your discussion title today, Miss Sarah?
Second anniversary of the Pulse nightclub shooting.
We are talking about the second anniversary of the Pulse nightclub shooting today here in Little Rock, Arkansas.
I called it the Pulse. No, the shooting wasn't in Little Rock.
No, the shooting was in Orlando, Florida at Pulse nightclub. Maybe I don't need my jacket.
It's a little warm.
It is warm here in the great state of Arkansas.
It is warm indeed.
Okay.
We have internet, Deborah?
Yes. Are you DC?
No.
So I'm wearing my sailboat tie, guys, for those that helped pick it out, by the way. So thank you. Shout out to y'all.
Where'd you get the tie? Did you get it here or did you get it at
I got it, I don't know where I got it. One of my shopping sprees at Burlington. It was on clearance for like $2.
Love that.
Yeah, it's a rooster tie.
I love the clearance.
Me too. I don't even think anybody really said pick this one, but it was $2, so I said we have to get it. Why so nervous? You can tell.
He's in a new area.
I'm in a new area. This is all new to me. Well, everyone knows media is not new to me, but
Let me have you. Can you move this way
Yep.
just a little? There you go.
perfect.
Great.
Mic
Put it over
check,
here.
check 1, 2. In the jungle. No, I'm
Okay.
kidding.
He's like me. He does
And
a
we're
check
going to
and
make
then
sure that
my mic's
you bring your
on.
mic around, because last week I was like,
Why can't I hear?
Yeah, do you have a paper towel or a napkin? What is that? Oh, that's the little sheet.
because you're going to talk that way some, and I want to
Yeah.
make sure that, let me get you.
There we go.
something.
We got it now. It's up now.
Yeah.
Hi, Chrissy. Is Sarah live yet? No, we're working on it now. Hi, Jacob. Thanks for tuning in. Hi, Jimmy. Hi, everybody. So when this starts, hi, Shaman. I'm not going to be able to look down and see who's with. Oh, thank you. See, everyone knows the waterworks is in town.
It's the hat, Christopher. You
I
wear a
know.
hat, and it's going to make your body temperature go up 10 degrees.
Ooh, I should probably take it off, huh? But it looks great.
Does look good. No doubt about that.
It's all about aesthetics. It's like Destiny's Child when they did their I'm a Survivor video. They had to pretend the water wasn't freezing cold even though it was ice.
I'm sure.
So,
All right.
The pains we
Sarah,
go
either
through.
camera. You can use either camera anytime.
Okay.
Take a break if you want to, when you want to.
Okay.
alright.
And
And if you have actually folks asking you questions when you're on your live, let me know, and we'll ask them. We'll get them answered.
Oh, okay. So, just so you know, if you guys have any questions that you'd like answered or you have anything you want to talk about, we are open to discussion here. Yes, Sarah's about to go live, Chrissy. Yay! All right, she says yes. You got this, kid. Julie, we love you. Love you too. Diane, everybody, thank you for tuning in. We are about to go live here. So you are welcome to again ask any questions, and we will get those answered for you.
okay, here we go. You guys ready?
Rock and roll, baby, rock and roll. Thank you,
Yes.
Dim.
We are ready. Rock you like a hurricane.
That's right.
5, 4, 3, 2.
And we're breezing into this. Welcome to the Politics of Conviction. I am Sarah Scanlon, and I've got a really good friend with me right now, Christopher. We're going to have a really intense show today. We're going to be talking about the up-and-coming anniversary of the Pulse nightclub murders that took place 2 years ago in Florida. Christopher is on to talk about a real-time perspective of what happens in situations like that. He was in the Pulse nightclub. He was there. He helped survivors. And it's a very personal issue that impacts us all. But from his perspective, it's extraordinarily impactful to him. And I want to give him the platform and the opportunity to talk about this. This is Politics of Conviction, but before we jump into Christopher, I actually want to talk about one thing that happened today at noon that I think is going to fly under the radar of a bunch of people, but I want to bring it out. I want to blow it up because it needs to be blown up. And that's this. If you're following the Rusty Cranford trial and all of the stuff that's happening around sending John Woods to jail, to prison, to sending a number of elected officials to the pokey, today he changed his plea in court to a guilty plea, and he named additional issues that have yet to be brought to light. In fact, in the court case, in the briefing, in the paperwork, he mentions giving a certain state senator an additional $500,000 over the course of many years in bribes and in paybacks. And they identified the state senator as Senator A, but the court documents also mentioned that Senator A introduced two bills, one bill that he shuffled through the House, or through the Senate and the House. And that senator that introduced that bill was Jeremy Hutchison, who is from Senate District 33 over in Saline County, part of Pulaski County. But Jeremy Hutchison had announced earlier this year that he would not be seeking re-election. And it's very clear that it wasn't just for family reasons that he wanted to not run for re-election, but that he knew that this story was coming out. He knew that he would be tagged for being, for breaking the law and for taking advantage of a situation that he was in. And I think it's important that we actually talk about this. We have an absolute case of corruption around the gift funds that were given to all legislators. Those gift funds are supposedly supposed to be used for non-profit organizations to support them in this state. It's like bringing the bacon home. The bacon was not intended to go into the elected officials, the elected senators and House members' pockets. It was supposed to go to the nonprofits, but it's been corrupted. The system has been corrupted and since been stopped. But it's important to note that the nephew of our governor, Senator Jeremy Hutchison, is being identified as one of the people who received over $500,000 over the course of many years. And that needs to be talked about. We need to talk about this. I want to fight back against this. If this were happening and it was a Democrat, we would be hearing no end to the demagoguery, to the blaming, to everything. And it's been silent on most people's minds. We haven't been able to actually talk about this. You certainly aren't hearing right-wing type radio talk about all the corruption because it's happening with Republicans instead of with Democrats. So Jeremy Hutchison now is becoming identified as Senator A, who was given $500,000 to pass specific legislation to help specific people. And that's a problem. That's a major problem. We need to clean house. We definitely need to clean house. We need to make sure that everybody that has any tint of corruption is thrown out of office and replaced with people who are good and who know that they have the best interests of the people at heart, not these corrupt assholes who are in place right now. Sorry, call it like it is. Anyway, now let's talk about the good stuff. Just kidding. That's not. I'm just kidding. But I'm not. Jeremy Hutchison took $500,000. Yeah, that's a problem. With that, okay, let's move on. Christopher.
Hi.
Sorry about that.
It's all right.
But this stuff got to be talked about.
If somebody doesn't talk about it, who will?
Who will?
Right.
So I'm using my platform.
Here you are.
I'm using my soapbox.
Hey, that's what we have to do. When
you
we're
get to
given
see
an
a part of it,
opportunity,
right?
we jump on the bandwagon and we
That's
ride,
right.
right? Others can ride with us or they can stay behind.
That's right. So, Christopher, you and I met earlier this week, and by chance, we have a mutual friend, Chrissy Rivera, or Christine Camp, however you
Chrissy.
know her, Chrissy. So, Chrissy sent me a text early in the morning, early week, and said, "Can you talk to Christopher?" And I was like, "Gladly, I will gladly talk to Christopher." And then I learned that you're doing this amazing project. So, tell us about what you're doing?
Well, it's not just me. There's a team of us that are working to create a vigil for the 2-year anniversary of the Pulse nightclub shooting, to show that we as a community, we as Little Rock, Arkansas, that we're the United States of America, and I feel like we should all come together and unite in a way to unite, to show that we're all together in this. And I wanted to be able to bring in where I went to college, where my family lives, to show that our community is with Orlando and the 49 that were murdered, that were stolen from us at too soon. And I wanted to be able to light up the city in rainbow lights, to show that we are here, that we are support, that this bridge is being built from community to community. And as each mass shooting goes throughout the country, or the acts of violence happen, it seems like if it's not a mass shooting, no one wants to talk about it, when there's shootings that go on every day. Well, June 12th is going to mark a major tragedy that was the largest mass shooting in modern day history at that time. And now it seems like people still talk about it because it is the largest in the LGBT community. Before that, it was the upstairs lounge.
I was going to say, it's the second largest in the LGBTQ, right? Because we did have the upstairs.
The upstairs lounge, but there were more murders in the Pulse nightclub than there were in the upstairs lounge.
Really?
Upstairs lounge, I believe, was 36.
I don't want to quibble over numbers.
Right,
but it's ridiculous to quibble over numbers.
But
definitely 2 large-scale intentional massacres that took place targeting the gay and lesbian community.
Right, and 45 years ago, this year, it'll be 45 years for the upstairs lounge in New Orleans, and it was their very first Pride.
So, quickly on the upstairs lounge, and then we'll move to Pulse, and then we'll talk about the state, what's happening on the state. The upstairs lounge was in New Orleans.
It was.
So let's talk about that for 2 seconds.
Of course.
So what we know, and what I know, and the stories that I've read and the stories I've heard, was somebody blocked the door.
They locked the door.
They locked the door, blocked access, and there was at that time there was only one entrance into the room, one entrance, one exit. They were both,
which was downstairs.
Right.
And they called it the upstairs lounge because the lounge was upstairs.
Right. And that lounge was specifically a gathering place for gay and lesbian folks who didn't feel comfortable in other settings.
Correct.
Right.
And it was New Orleans' very first Pride. And they were all gathering together and in one location that was supposed to be a safe haven. You know, in war they called it Friends of Dorothy. So if you were a friend of Dorothy, you went to a location where it says, "Oh, we're going to go see Dorothy tonight." You knew. Well, with New Orleans, it was the upstairs lounge. And, you know, where do you go when you want to feel safe? When they went upstairs. And to have these haters to go in, start a fire in the stairwell.
They locked the door.
They started the fire first and then locked the door.
So they started the fire so that everybody knew the fire existed.
Mm-hmm.
And then they locked the door so the terror took place.
So it all took place. And nobody knew anything until it had reached upstairs. And then next thing you know, the building was being burned and people inside are being burned alive. And I've met people from there. I'm speaking to a woman, Sherry Wright, who's doing a documentary on the upstairs lounge, who's combining the act of terror from upstairs to also Pulse and combining them together, and which will be coming out probably the end of the year, if not next year. And it's talking about how the resources back then were a lot different from now. Where Pulse, it was a lot, there were cameras, there was more footage involved because we are now a more open community. But back then, it wasn't talked about. You were hated on, and
you
so
were scared. You were afraid for your life. And I was growing up in Arkansas at that point.
Well, when it went to identifying the bodies, the people who identified the bodies were those that were in the club or had been in there prior to the fire, saying, yes, that was my friend, or that is so-and-so because of the shoes or because of the shirt, or just of how they recognized them, because people didn't have IDs on them because of the fact that they were gay. They didn't want to be known as being gay, and it was a hard situation. I don't know personally because I wasn't alive in the 70s.
And this was even, I was alive in the 70s, and this was even 20 years following New York. It was 20 years following New York. It was in a time when you would have thought there'd be a little more acceptance, in an area where you thought there'd be a little more acceptance. I mean, it's New Orleans. Debauchery reigns, right?
Yes.
You would have thought. But the fact that that was the target of the largest hate crime at that point in our history, was unbelievable to me. But I get it.
It's sad. I mean, I think if I had to choose, which I wouldn't want to choose, my way of death, I think I would have rather been shot than burned alive.
Oh yeah. Oh no, totally, absolutely.
And so to me, that was more of a heinous crime, even though you had more mass destruction with a firearm, but to go down in flames, that was a moment in time I don't think I'd want to live. But they paved our way to the freedoms that we have today, because if that wouldn't have happened, there wouldn't have been as many people who stood up for the freedoms. And
It's true.
And as a teenager, for me coming up and coming to age, I had Matthew Shepard I had to worry about, and that was in 1998, and he took his last breath October 12th, 1998, and I won't forget that date because the 12th and then June 12th. So it was like a hate crime with a hate crime. It seemed like the numbers still coincided together, and I was in the 9th grade. Columbine happened when I was in the 9th grade on April 20th. So that was the first start of a fear of a young child's mind. How are we going to grow up when you're hated, when you're discriminated against, when you have no one you can talk to, because if you talk to somebody, the church wants to turn you and say, "Oh, you can pray it away."
Oh no, you can't.
You can't. This is who you are.
Right.
We are who we are. You know,
And gloriously who we are.
Exactly.
I mean, absolutely gloriously who we are. And when you wonder why we have pride parades to this day, why is it that we want to step up and say, yeah, we're proud of who we are, and force, quote unquote, force ourselves on other people? That's not what it's about.
Exactly. And explain that to me a little bit, and to our audience who are here listening, who may not understand that what is it that we do celebrate in the month of June, for it being Pride Month, and why is it that we do celebrate Pride? Because a lot of people are like, well, why is there not a straight month? I'm straight. Can I wear this?
Every month is straight month.
And every day. Right. And so what is it that makes June so special for us?
Well, you and I both know.
Right?
We know, so we'll talk about it. Yes, Chrissy's right. The Stonewall Inn Village in New York City in the last weekend in June. So let's talk about the realities. The realities of our life is those of us who came before us, who identified as gay and lesbian, whether they were part of the Mattachine Society or any other organization, there were raids, a number of raids, continual raids, and politicians made great names for themselves by raiding clubs and raiding gathering places. There were rules on the books and laws on the books that said women had to wear at least 5 elements of women's clothing, men had to wear at least 5 elements of men's clothing, or they could be arrested for debauchery and other sordid crimes. And so in New York City, there's a place called the Stonewall Inn where a number of drag queens would gather and do shows, and it was a known place that was welcome to people who identified differently. And so one particular night, one particular day, the Stonewall Inn was raided, and the drag queens weren't having any of it. They just refused. They did not back down. When the police came in, the drag queens literally chased them out and built a wall, a barrier between the Stonewall Inn and the street to keep the police from arresting the people inside the inn. And it just became a rallying cry. They were not going to take any more shit. They were not going to be targets of hate. They were not going to be used to make other, to make reputations good, and they were not going to be demagogues. So that became that moment in history became the rallying cry for pride. And so June, the month in which it happened, became Pride Month. And every month, the last weekend in June is known as Pride Weekend because of it coincided with the historical moment in which the Stonewall Inn fight took place. And so New York, LA, San Francisco, and Seattle hold their pride parades and their pride rallies on that day to proclaim we are people. We are beautiful in our own right. We are glorious members of our communities. We are taxpayers. We deserve the same respect that everybody else gets. And to this day, we still have to fight for that respect.
And what's amazing is there are still communities still being brand new to this. I was Grand Marshal at the Salem Pride Parade last year, which was their 6th annual. This year, they got to hang up transgender flags and the Pride flags at City Hall. So they had a whole circle of posts where they were able to have Pride flag, transgender flag, Pride flag, and in the center the American flag. And
which is a beautiful symbol.
A beautiful. And last year was the first year they got to raise it themselves. And then this year they each got to raise one.
That's great.
And Salem, where hate began in our country, the original capital of America, where all customs came in.
You're talking about Salem, Massachusetts.
Salem, Massachusetts.
Right.
Yes.
Not to be confused with Salem, Oregon, on the other side of the country, that has had more than 6 Pride parades.
But so we have that, and then this year I just found out this morning that Sandusky, Ohio, is hosting their first Pride this year.
Conway Pride is like 6 or 7, right? So Conway Pride I went to last weekend.
And I Googled when I got here about June 1st Pride in Arkansas, and nothing showed up for Conway. Otherwise, I would have gone. I would have really loved to have experienced an Arkansas Pride because I haven't seen one yet. I would have went to college here. We didn't have that.
I've done Houston, Little Rock, Seattle, Portland, Cincinnati, Washington D.C. I have not done New York, San Francisco, L.A. I've done Oklahoma Pride. I've done Oklahoma Pride
nice.
in Oklahoma City.
Okay.
And it was hotter than hell.
Than an
Uchi-Kuchi. Oh, I'm telling you, man. But if you've never seen an actual huge, originally intended Pride Parade, you're missing it because, the Dykes on Bikes started out every year, and in Seattle when they started out, there are about 45 Dykes on Bikes. Running their motorcycles up and down, and a few of the guys will get themselves in bicycles or something smaller just to be clowning around, and they'll join in the parade. But as organized and as large as the contingents are in New York, it's hundreds. In LA, it's hundreds. In San Francisco, it's oh my God, right?
And now in Orlando, last year was it was 2016 after Pulse had happened. It was the largest Pride parade
I don't doubt it.
in Orlando. Over 400 venues, over 400 people had signed up to go through the parade, and it was a long walk. I can tell you because I walked it and I was like, wow, and seeing everybody from both sides,
right.
It was beautiful. And I remember my first Pride. It was DC, and my friends were like, "You want to go see a drag race?" I'm like, "Sure. Where's the ear gear?" Because my uncles race cars, so I'm thinking,
drag race
right?
in DC is the most phenomenal thing.
Amazing. They had queens in heels racing, stilettos, and you had to cross the finish line in your stilettos.
In your stilettos, and by racing, yes, they're running, and they may be wearing dresses and they may be wearing shorts. They don't know. It doesn't matter. But they're running in stilettos. You're not allowed in the drag race without your stilettos.
And I was 19, just this fresh buck out of Midwest going, I was stationed with United Airlines up there, and we're like, let's go. And before that, it was Black Pride, and I'm like, what is this?
Chicago Pride, that's
and I'm like, wow, this is incredible. And it was unbelievable. And from then, I've done Columbus Pride. I've been to Salem, Boston. Last year brought Pulse survivors up to honor them on a float, which was a beautiful thing because the community came together, and we went to a club and met some drag queens that performed. Adore Delano was the main performer. Incredible. And Orlando, Tampa, and even Little Rock Pride in 2016 asked, would you come down and be a Grand Marshal? But at that time, I was going through a lot because Pulse had just happened. I wasn't sure if I was ready to be put in that spotlight yet because of all the things that were going through my head with the active shooting and the hate and the hoax that was going through my life, the death threats. And I'm like, do I really want to target myself in an open crowd that is...
Well, let's talk about that for a second because...
and we do have Sherry Wright watching, by the way.
What is Sherry saying?
She's the one doing the documentary on the Upstairs Lounge.
Good.
So it says bring her on camera. I don't know if you want to talk to her for a moment.
I don't think we are hooked up that way. I'd have to
on
have
here,
to do
but
it
I can do
some
her
other
on
way.
here. She can come through and talk to us. Nancy says Chanson, great, wonderful, wonderful. Okay.
So let's talk about this for 2 seconds.
Okay.
Anybody asking questions that they think
Nope. Does anybody have a question or wanna buzz in on our conversation? We can go ahead and bring that on and bring that to light. That'd be great. Hi everybody. Again, thank you for tuning in. We are live here in Little Rock.
So, let's talk about that night.
Okay.
Nobody goes to a club, and granted, I don't know if you're like me, but when I was young, going to clubs, it was you get ready to go to a club by 11 o'clock at night, right?
Yeah.
So nobody was going to a club at 11 o'clock at night expecting that they would be experiencing the most horrific tragedy in their life.
Knowing the last thing you ate was going to be the last thing, or
Could be
the
very
last
well the
outfit,
last thing,
or the
right.
last phone call, or the last conversation you had before you left the door, whether it was a good conversation or a bad conversation.
Right.
Whether it was an amazing meal with your family, that for the first time you gathered with them, you hugged them, you loved them, you said, I'll see you after work, and you don't come home, or you order your favorite drink at the bar, and you don't even get to sip it yet. Or you're dancing with your husband on the dance floor, and you dance to the heavens from there, you don't know.
So, your life after, I don't want to talk about that night. I want to talk about your life afterwards and how
Okay.
you recover from something like that. Like, what is that process like?
It's challenging. Baby steps. It's one day at a time, one moment at a time. There's really no time limit on it. There are folks that have healed quicker than others. There are some that are still devastated who aren't even coming out of their house as often as they would. I don't like to go to the store by myself. I try to always say, hey, who wants to go to the grocery store? Because I don't really want to go in public by myself. But it has to do with more than just everything that happened with that aspect as well. It's what's happened after. But you think that you're alone because nobody understands you. But then there's so many people who say, hey, I'm here to help you. I'm here to talk to you. But what do you talk about? When you talk about Pulse, everyone's like, well, that's what you always talk about. Can we talk about something else? Let's talk about this. So you watch TV. Well, with TV, there's going to be a death, or there's going to be gunfire, or there's going to be something that affects you in a way where you're emotional, and the person next to you is like, suck it up, buttercup. What are you doing?
You're a snowflake for that.
Right, but it's like your emotions are a lot more intense than what they once were, because what happened to us was real life. And before I went to Pulse, I went to go see the movie Conjuring 2, which was based on true events of the haunting in England. So I saw a horror movie based on true events, and then I went to a nightclub that was a true event. That did
became a
happen.
horror.
That became my own horror story. The same day, within hours. So to me, trying to pull what's on screen, what's in real life, now it's everything is that extra emotion. So then again, it's how does somebody help you when they say, how can I help you?
Well,
we
what
really
do you,
don't-
What do you say to that, though? What do you say when somebody says, how can I, like, I feel bad for you, and I'm here for you in case you need me?
Thank you.
Or does that mean you're here for me when I need you at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm covered in cold sweat, and I can't sleep, and there's nothing I can do to take away this feeling? Is that when I can call you?
Right. No, because everyone's sleeping.
Nobody wants to be disturbed at 2 o'clock in the morning when they're like taking care of their families. Does that mean I can interfere with that?
Right. Or they're out drinking, having a good time with their friends, or they had a hard day and they don't have anyone to talk to, but then when you talk to them, you bring them down. So how is it that you can be with somebody when you say, hey, I'm here for you? Or when you have a cell phone bill coming up and you can't really pay for it.
Because you can't work, because you can't do anything.
Exactly. Or you're in a wheelchair and you have no access to your own bathroom that you used to shower comfortably in, but you have to be wheeled outside, have your kitchen window open, which is true. This is one of our survivors, who you then have to have the hose that you use to spray down your dishes with hung out the window to then shower yourself outside of your kitchen window. What do you do when someone says, let me help you? And it was almost 18 months before this person got any help. Me and a group of people had to come together and say, hey, let's do this. And now it's being done.
What happened to the money? Like, there were millions that was raised.
Well, it depends on which fund you are considering millions raised to. With the One Orlando Fund, which came from the Equality Florida,
Yeah.
that came together with Nadine Smith and Carlos Smith and a whole bunch of
Right.
a bunch of people. National Compassion Fund came together. A bunch of people from all over the world had donated funds to
Yeah.
this fund. It went into a one solid fund called the One Orlando Fund, and it was distributed evenly amongst 4 categories. Now, if you ask me, other survivors, other victims, it would have been a whole lot easier to just take that money, divvy it up evenly amongst everybody, call it a day, instead of having to say, oh, well, you're a category, or you're this, and this is what
Here we
you're
go again.
worth. Right. This is putting a worth on somebody.
Right.
But, you know, it was okay because it got some of us by for the year, some of us doing what we had to do, and some people were so young that they didn't know how to understand how to manage money, so it went like this.
Right.
But then how far does $25,000 go?
So everybody in the club received some amount of money.
Some amount of money. Everyone received something. Now, if you were an employee, some of you got, you know, a year's pay from the One Pulse Foundation, which was a different foundation.
Okay.
And then there was Pulse of Orlando. And then there was, you know, quite a few other organizations that
People
came
were
together.
willing to actually show you.
They were
If there's
showing
some
that they were
compassion.
with you, but where was that money really going? And was it really going to the individuals who were at Pulse? No. One fund distributed money, and that was the One Orlando Fund from the National Compassion Fund, which is now currently helping Parkland, which closes June 30th. But that is an organization where they collect funds, where 100% is directly given to the survivors of whatever mass situation comes through. And it was founded by Aurora and Connecticut, and all the past shootings that have happened have come together to ensure that all these organizations, all these new people who are wanting to create organizations, all these people from communities, when tragedy happens, comes together to just collect money to give themselves a check, because nonprofits are able to have a board. You're able to pay out those people on that board, and then you have to do all these fundraisers, all these activities, and you have to collect those funds to pay those people. Well, what if you have a board of 10 or a board of 5, and the money that was collected, of the thousands of dollars, goes to the board, and they say, oh, we're here, or they get a certain amount.
Okay, so this is a much deeper subject.
Oh, yes.
And
I can get into
at some
all
point.
this.
But from what you're telling me, and I know Nadine Smith, right? So I
She's
know
amazing.
Nadine. She is an amazing person.
Amazing.
And please tell me that you're telling me that was the form, that was the one that actually paid people.
Yes, Nadine Smith with the One Orlando Fund was
They
the one
actually
that paid out.
distributed their
They
money.
distributed their money,
But
and
there are other funds that didn't
that
distribute
did
them.
not. And they said they were here to support the survivors. They were here to support the victims. But when you use the word support, that word support allows them to legally use that term to where they don't have to give anything but maybe 10%, like March of Dimes, like United Way, like Red Cross. I mean, I can go into it further and further because I've been learning about it, but we're not going to do that today.
We will do it at some point.
We
I promise
can
you,
do this.
We will come on and we will talk about this at some point. Today I want to focus on, I do want to talk about this at some point. Not right
we
now.
should. We should. The public should be aware of nonprofit organizations who are here for their own benefit.
Right.
Who are here to support them because they get a paycheck to help others who are wounded, who are affected, who are not getting the help that they deserve or that they need. So it is. But the One Orlando Fund that was brought together by the GoFundMe, it was Equality Florida came together with the GoFundMe, who came together with National Compassion Fund, who held concerts, comedy shows.
They did everything they could.
They did everything they could to raise money from around the world.
Right.
And it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. And you're able to go online and look at GoFundMe, One Orlando Fund, and see the thank you video from people from around the world saying, I wanted to contribute to this, I wanted to thank you for that. And it's a beautiful, beautiful video. It'll touch the soul. And they gave. I mean, I even got my tattoo with the dandelion and the rainbow going into the pulse. You know, it represents, through every storm, the seeds of love will be planted into our pulse that feed life. So it's a circle of life. And they featured that on there because they were looking for someone to get a tattoo. I happened to be gifted the opportunity to get one. So I said, just come with me and let's do this. And it was my healing moment. I didn't want a date. I didn't want a number. I wanted to be able to look at my arm and know that even though this was just a weed, that eventually the love is planted and the flower will blossom, or whatever is to grow into this pulse, whatever forms, will be a beautiful thing, and it'll continue to grow. And when you feed it, when you water it, when you nurture it, and that's how I'm healing, is feeding and watering and nurturing myself. And it's a long road. It's a very long road.
It is. I have some people who are chiming in. So Brittany Stockton, who's a friend of mine who lives in other side of Arkansas, said Conway Pride happened when I was in high school in 2005, I think. So they've been going for a while.
Oh, wow.
Maybe interrupted at times, but 2005 was the earliest Conway Pride that she can remember. And the Pink House has been a stalwart of Conway for years. Gary Forkham from Jonesboro, from Northeast Arkansas, said, and I want to bring this up and have a conversation about it, it's a talk to God and ask God. And ask, so before you and I start unloading on this,
Okay.
I will have to say that, yes, there is a spiritual center that we should go to, that we have the ability to go to. It may not be defined as God as somebody else knows him, or knows her, or knows that being. But yeah, there is a way that we can actually reach into our spirituality and identify some other additional form of support. Right.
Right.
But it's not the God that you and I hear people talk about.
Exactly, because the God that we hear is the God that shuts the church doors, is the God that shuns us when there's a lesbian mother who has kids, who needs
Homeless
formula,
services.
or who needs diapers, or who
Right.
needs something, and they're shunned because they choose to love a woman. Well, how are they pregnant? They have a surrogate. Well, that's not my fault. And so
yes, there's the God that we have been taught is not a loving God. Is
when
actually
our
a
God
hateful God
is the one that's supposed to love, when
Right.
our God says we're here for love,
Right.
when the Catholic Church shuns you, the Christian Church shuns you, the Baptist Church shuns you,
And we have preachers preaching that God is this being that judges you as wrong and broken.
But we're not supposed to judge each other. It's not up to us to judge. I mean, you're sitting there eating a plate full of shrimp, and then you're judging me
And
on
throwing
my
a
sin.
football.
Right.
And
A
wearing mixed
pigskin.
clothes. And wearing clothes of mixed fibers.
That's not 100% wool. And so I have somebody on here as well that says 30 years married, PTSD combat veteran. First thing loved ones need to do for friends with PTSD is listen and listen and listen and study PTSD and be there for them. And yes, okay, I've got to see more. And be there for them. And yes, even at 2 o'clock in the morning. Yes, Nancy, thank you. And Nancy is amazing. Her husband was in Vietnam War, I believe, and he suffers from it and from PTSD. And it's interesting. She also states that PTSD is a normal reaction to an abnormal event, or the brain becomes rewired to protect you in the future. To support and educate, the compassion is key. So support and education, passion is key. And Pastor Bree Taylor. Hi, Pastor Bree. So Pastor Bree has been with me from the beginning as far as trying to help me understand faith and God and believe in His love. And she's a pastor in Orlando at Oasis Ministry.
Thank God.
And she's been there. It was 11 years last, so maybe 12 years coming up, and
10 years
maybe
she was there
13.
before.
And she has been there a long time preaching, and she helps the community. And it's more on the side, more on the not so wealthy side of town, but she still helps those. It's the working class part of town, but it's also a little lower than that.
Okay.
So, but people who do work go there. People who do believe in God go there. People who
And the barrio.
who don't feel like they have a place to go. And it's for the LGBT community. It's the Church of God. And her parents were pastors. They taught the word. So for her to be where she's at, and we even spoke at a church in New York. It's sad that I can't think of the name right now, but it's a ministry that teaches LGBT community to go out there and preach and minister, and they educate you. So it's amazing on how open and how loving the world is. You don't have to be straight to love God. You don't have to be gay to love God. You just have to be a person who loves God or believes in what you believe in. And that's what it is, because God is love. He made all of His children in His image, in His way, and He sacrificed His Son for our sins. So one sin is not greater than the other sin, but we're not here to talk about religion, right? Religion and politics
That's another show,
is a whole nother show. But it's like, what do you do?
But it gets into it because if people are telling you and me and others who have actually seen or felt violence in our lives because of who we are and who we love, and you say, leave it up to God, give it up to God, and then, but it's hard not to feel like it's that same God that allowed these things to take place.
Right. But they say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Right. Well,
so here
funny.
I am feeling like I'm in my Hercules momentum, trying to gain the strength.
So Betty Jo says, God wants us to help others. And she's right. God does want us to help others.
Not help bring us down, bring us up.
That's right. Ruth Ann's on. Ruth Ann Magnus is on. Jerry's on. Teresa Koppler, and this is the next thing we're going to talk about. I want to go next from talking about the impact of the pulse to actually how we actually do take care of other people around us, right? And what we actually do to recognize and remember. But this is important to think about too. So before we go there, the Colorado cake baker just put a sign outside his business that says "No gays allowed."
Ooh. In a state that is against discrimination.
A state that has a law on the books.
Written in black and white.
Right.
That
says you cannot discriminate against somebody on the basis of their sexual orientation or gender identity in housing, employment, and public accommodations.
And yet he says,
and it
my
has a sign
God,
outside that says "No gays allowed."
with him saying, in my religion, well, my God, well, I'm sorry, but your God is our God, my God,
right.
The nation's God, one nation under God. So you want to tell me that no gays are allowed? Well, honey, they're going to give you a majority of your funding. But then what about those friends that are straight or that are getting married, the man and female that you call marriage?
You're drawing
and they have
down
friends.
the fire. You don't want to draw down the fire.
Well, he's putting fuel on his fire. It's gonna cause it to where
it's
gonna backfire. He's gonna be out of
business
business in less than 6 months, and then he's gonna say, "Well, it's my belief." Well, your belief should be, "My God loves, and God is love." And when you speak hate in your preach, then you're speaking hate to everyone that's in there. Just like Macklemore says in his song, when you speak hate, it's hate. You don't hate.
Right.
You don't. It's about love. What can we do? What can we teach you? What lesson are we going to bring to you today that will help better your week, help better the person sitting next to you, help the person or the world around you as you make it through your day, through a smile, through a hug, through a how are you, through a door opening, through carrying the bags, the elderly from the grocery store, not putting a sign saying "No gays allowed," because what that's going to do is going to flock them right to the door and say, "Hey!" Okay, there's going to be.
Oh, sorry, you don't want us. I can see it, and I love it. And let me say this too: that on Monday, when this ruling came down from the Supreme Court that said that they found fault with the Civil Rights Commission in Colorado, and that their case was a faulty case. That was then translated into saying that it's okay to say "no gays."
But the Supreme Court.
That's not what the Supreme Court said.
But the Supreme Court was the one that legalized gay marriage.
Well, the Supreme Court did not legalize it so much as to say you have a case in marriage. If the state's going to provide a service, they should provide it to everybody. Is really what the Supreme Court. It's not like they went and put a blessing on gay marriage.
Right.
They basically put a blessing on you can't discriminate.
Well,
So
he's discriminated on his cake.
I discriminate on his cake too. I don't want to steal
right.
cake.
Who wants a cake like that?
The cake's
I mean,
made of hate.
that's a
What the
dirty
hell do I
cake.
wanna-
That's
yeah,
a
no,
dirty
no.
cake. I don't
Yeah.
want to hate cake.
Don't want to hate cake.
No hate cakes today.
I want love.
If I'm going to eat calories, I want it to feel
Damn
just as
straight.
good going down as it does.
I don't
going
need no
up.
cake in.
No.
I don't need no. I don't need no cake in Colorado. I need Love Lolly on Main Street. That's what I need. And by God, they welcome everybody.
Exactly.
They don't got no prejudice against anybody. You want an ice cream? Come on in.
My friend Abby has Teas and Things in Hillcrest.
Teas and Things.
Teas and
Another
Things,
one. It's
and
like,
she asked me,
I don't
"Can
need
I
no cake.
can I put a flag in my window, or can I put a symbol to show that everyone's equal here, or that all are welcome?" And I'm like, "We'll get you some."
We'll get whatever you
and
want.
I have friends who have businesses that want
right.
this.
There
So
are
let's bring it.
organizations in place in the state that actually actively are recruiting and working with businesses who want to welcome fairness. And that is something that we need to do.
It is.
And it's something that needs to have, like, if you're a business and you don't want to discriminate and you want to make sure that you're welcoming all customers, especially in the Heights and
That
Hillcrest.
all money
All
is
money
good
green
money.
All money is green money.
Okay.
Baby. So
if you got it, you want to spend it, bring it in.
We'll get whatever picture you want. The other thing, no hate cakes. That's right. No hate cakes. That's the new thing.
Michael Pilato says painting and listening to my brother, and Shemin Hurst says preach it, brother. And they're at Pulse right now. Actually,
They are.
They're at Pulse painting, and Michael Pilato he's one of two main painters. Yuri Karabash is another on a mural called Inspiration Orlando, which is a mural that came to life after Pulse happened. And he stayed awake for 49 hours to honor the 49, painted them in hearts with other artists in the community to create this mural that's going to be augmented into your cell phone, that you're going to hear stories, hear life. There's going to be a children's story involved in it so that the young kids can understand what it's like to be in a situation like what we were without the main violence, talking about, everyone who was involved in Pulse and bringing it together, the community, the world, and it's beautiful. And he did one at Penn State, and he's just absolutely incredible. He's a man of my heart, and he gave me a wooden heart that he gave his daughter. She unfortunately passed away a year before Pulse. So he understood the pain of what a parent goes through when they lose a child. So this project is very, very important and sincere and dear to his heart. And I've learned to grow to understand his love for me, for the community, for everybody around through his paintbrush. And I can show this after the show with what the painting is and how it is. And Anderson Cooper's on there, Nancy Rosado, our state commissioner, like everybody who has been involved that's expressing and showing love is painted on this mural. And he's allowing people the parents to put their handprints on their child.
I've seen this.
Yes, and it's beautiful. And what's great was Matthew Shepard's parents were there yesterday. And Judy. And they put their handprints on Matthew. And when I told my story of what happened, it was amazing when he said, we put Matthew Shepard on this to monument because he's an important key of history. He was an important key to your history, to your upbringing. And we need stories like yours and like everybody's to put this together to make it to where it's going to be where it is today. And what's going to be amazing that when this is complete at the 3 years, so next year when it is complete, you're going to be able to go up there with an app on Geogram. You're going to be able to leave a message right there in front of you at that moment. And if that mural moves to go to another location, your message, like a bottle, will be in that location geographically. So if you go by that location with your phone, it'll send an alert to let you know there's a message of love here. There's a message that was once belonging to a mural.
What is this app called?
It's called Geogram. So basically, anywhere geographically you go, you're able to drop a message at that location.
I want to do that.
So yes, and when it happens, I will let you know. And what we're trying to do is also get it on a cruise to Puerto Rico, because we want to be able to take the mural to Puerto Rico. So we're trying to find those who are open to funding the project to allow the mural to go to Puerto Rico. We get the stories of those that were lost in Puerto Rico, the stories of those that were hate, the stories of love, the stories of people that want to come together through art to help others heal.
This is like a electronic quilt.
Yes.
AIDS quilt.
Yes.
It's an electronic version of the AIDS quilt, because the AIDS quilt is made up of patches of people who died from AIDS, and it traveled all over the country for 15 years. And now we're going to have a virtual mural traveling and collecting stories.
Well, we don't know if it's going to travel like all over the
think
country,
we can figure it
but
out.
if we can figure out a way to make it travel, that would be amazing, because it takes funds to travel.
Yeah.
And if they're going to be able to have a location to have it solidarity, where it's in one location or an anchored location, that's one thing. But if we can find organizations around the country, the HRCs, GLAD, Here Media, anybody who's willing to allow this mural to travel, that would be amazing. But I do know that we want to get it for sure from Florida to Puerto Rico on a cruise ship. And while we're on that cruise ship, we as a team can take pictures of this mural on the ship, even though it may be tied down, but we can drop messages in the ocean and leave it saying, we're here on this ship, so whatever ship it is, going to Puerto Rico to share our love. And we're dropping that message right there. So then when another cruise ship comes along, because the world turns, access is different, so you may not go that same route again because it's going to be further nauticals down, where when one day in life, 15 years from now, 30 years from now, 100 years from now, that app, that geogram, well, that message will still be there
It's just-
geographically.
Because I mean, I'm thinking about traveling and planes and everything else that we all
The
those-
free Wi-Fi on Delta,
I can imagine
Southwest.
using that, like, dropping things
Right?
across the sky.
Oh, trust me. Because geogram will, it was created from when these individuals were at Pulse, looking at things like how can we allow
Mark
people
this.
to bring messages in, and what other way than to create an app to tie in with a mural that is augmented, that comes to life when you look at it, than a message in a bottle, but a message through digital.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And this is going to drop, and it's in the creation. It's going to drop and make amazing change of love, and it'll make a way of people to communicate throughout the world. It's amazing. I'm in love with it.
So, Chrissy says she's totally down for a trip to Puerto Rico.
Okay.
All right, I don't blame you. Hey, Steph. So before we get lost in all of this, and we're getting close to the end.
Thank you, Abby. Proud of you too.
And I want to talk about how we're going to commemorate the 12th.
Okay.
So tell us about it. What are we doing?
Well, we're still in attempts to try to get downtown lit up in Rainbow. The Stevens Building, the Simmons Building, the Bank of America Building. We're still trying, because I know each building has lights on them. I know one of them puts the ribbons, the hearts, the tree. I would love to have a heart on one side and a ribbon on the other in rainbow, if possible, or the heart on it, or the ribbon, but in a color. Another building in a color. The Doubletree Inn I saw online lights up. We still have yet to have that happen. If it's next year, then it's next year.
So, but what's the process of doing that?
I've called the buildings, the banks that are there, and they said they've given my number to the management. Well, nobody's gotten back to me yet. So then, I did get the name of the management groups that are in charge of those buildings.
Yeah.
So today, tomorrow, I'm going to try to attempt to contact them, see,
Any of them Tucker Moses? Any of them? Like, what are the names of the?
right off the tip
I
of my
wish we
tongue.
had the names of the.
If I had my notebook,
we'll put it into the comments on the video.
I can totally get that to you when I get home. Look on my paperwork and see. I know something. Kelly and I want to say Tacky, but not Tackett, perhaps. Yeah. And then there was, but yeah, they're all management corporations that are owned by those buildings.
So your desire is to get them lit up in rainbow.
In rainbow
right.
on June 12th, if not June 11th.
You do have one function.
We do. We have the 3 bridges of North Little Rock that are going to light up in rainbow in honor of our 49 and those that have been killed to acts of hate and gun violence in the LGBT community on June 11th. To me, and what's great is that there was only one day available in the month of June for this to happen, because it takes 90 days for an application process to go through, and June 11th was available. Now, I know June 12th was the day that everything happened,
sure.
But I walked into Pulse on June 11th. I walked in on a Saturday. A normal person who goes out, who goes home, goes to bed, eats breakfast, does whatever, and they wake up on the new day. Not going into a club, not going anywhere. That's still the same day. So to me, it's the 11th. I went to the club on the 11th. I went and celebrated and danced with everybody that was in that bar on the 11th. And it just so happened the shooting.
The massacre happened on the 12th because it was after midnight.
Exactly. At 2:02 a.m. the first shots were fired. And what's incredible with this bridge is that it lights up at sundown. So we're all coming together on a vigil down at the River Market.
So at the River Market, right, close to the Arboretum, or close to the pad, right? The splash pad.
The splash pad, yes, right. At 8 p.m.
8 o'clock, River Market, splash pad.
And what's going to happen is we're all going to stand together, the sun is going to set.
And then we're going to watch it light up.
And we're going to watch the bridge light up. And what's amazing is Diane Warren gave me her song "Till It Happens to You" by Lady Gaga, and they wrote it together. But I have the rights to the song because I'm able to play it. We're going to collaborate the song with our vigil. We're going to have music. We're going to have love. We're going to have connectivity. We're going to have community, and we're going to have family. And this is what this is about. We're going to show.
So anybody can join you.
Anybody can come down. Everybody's come down. Welcome. There's no discrimination here. Everybody is welcome.
That are in Northeast Arkansas, there's something happening on the 12th.
In Jonesboro.
Right? So they're at St. Mark's Church. They're going to have their own
good memory. Yes.
Hey, it's the church I grew up in.
Oh,
it's the church I had my first Eucharist. I had my first catechism. That was my church.
Well, great. Take
So,
me to church.
At that church, they're gonna be ringing the bell 49 times, and they're gonna be having a vigil on the 12th.
That's beautiful. Yes. One of them contacted me from the Moms Demand Action.
Yeah, Christopher.
Christopher, yep, and asked if I can send something for them to read, and I said sure. So they're going to read something that I've written at the vigil, and I wrote something about pride, because I mean I know we're going to honor our 49, but I also want to commemorate what pride is and what it means to me and what it means to our community. And so for you to bring that onto the show, that was amazing to explain what pride is, why we celebrate pride, and the importance of us coming together, because it is important that we speak and try to end bigotry, because this is where we're at now in America.
So you know what it's like to grow up in the South. You know what it's like to grow up in Arkansas.
Yes, I know what it's like to be across the country.
Right. Well, I do too. I lived in Seattle for 15 years.
Call
I lived
me
in
quad
Chicago
coastal.
I'm multi-coastal, right? And I'm married to a woman who was born in Switzerland but has immigrated to the United States when she was a small baby, has a doctorate from Purdue, has grown up in, she also has experienced a lot of stuff. But you and I growing up in Arkansas, we learned some very important things. The first thing we learned was we can't let anybody know who we are.
Right.
We put ourselves in danger when we do. And God forbid we do anything that brings shame on our families, which is the biggest issue with me, which was my biggest issue growing up in Jonesboro, was that I would not want to do anything that brings shame to my family.
Because we are our Father's name.
It's in the South, the culture of the South is their families are everything. That's where we're the most. Those are the people that love us the most. Right?
And imagine being one of the 49 that were not out. Imagine those that were shot. There were 68 wounded. Half of them were not out. So how do you explain to your family, oh, by the way, and then at that moment, you lose your home because you don't have equal rights. You lose your family because they don't care for you, or they get closer to you.
And is it a stretch for me to say that there were a significant number that were Cuban, that were Latin?
Yeah, it was Latin night. It was right. Latin night. So this is
that again is another layer.
One night a week, Saturday night, a Latin night at Pulse nightclub, where it was a majority Latin night, where they all spoke Spanish.
Right.
And I still today am communicating with survivors that use a translation device, a tool to communicate with me. And I mean, I still talk to two of the ones that I helped save. Like it's amazing to know that night you stick your bandana in a bullet hole to stop someone from bleeding, to then see them in their healing process.
Confronting all these things.
Yeah, and they speak Spanish, and I'm English speaking, so we communicated through body language, through an art of healing or an art of compassion, where you don't have to know another language to help somebody, to save somebody, to be there for someone in their time of need. Like when say, what can we do to help you? Listen.
Yep.
And one day you're going to be angry, one day you're going to be cranky, one day you're going to be super sad, one day you're going to be really happy. But then what do you do when the people who you live with can't handle that anymore? Because then they need help.
So we have some great allies in this whole thing, outside of the people that are giving care and sustenance to the survivors and the victims of that shooting. But here in Arkansas, I cannot, Chrissy even called it out for me and said, you've got to actually mention, you got to talk about the fact that Moms Demand Action is part of the sponsorship.
Oh yeah, they sure are.
Vigil. And that they are very much in tune and integrated in everything that's going on.
With Eve, with Moms Demand actually going to the meeting when she invited me when I got here around the 1st of June.
Yep.
And she's like, can you come down to the meeting? We talked about my story. They let my dad speak and tell his story about his life and what he's endured through gun violence at a young age, to being there the night when I called him at 2 a.m. and saying, Dad, there's been a shooting. I'm okay. And him hearing the carnage in the background, so then my phone dying. So what do you do as a parent when your child is there and they're miles away and all they can do?
Dad, can we
Dad, you want to come sit up? Dad's over here.
Dad and his son. You're beautiful. Man.
You're beautiful just the way you are.
That's right.
So this is my dad, everyone. Say hi to the Mr. Hansen here. Yep.
Right.
He served proudly in the military. Yep, 20 years.
20 years in the Air Force.
in the Air Force.
Let's put this mic over here.
And that's when the Matthew Shepard story with Chris came. I was stationed in Wyoming and worked on nuclear missiles or with
Laramie County,
support
where it
of-
happened.
I know.
support of missiles. And Chris saw a lot of stuff in his young age. So when you hear about guns, I mean, he grew up going underground with me and seeing all the stuff that nobody even knew existed.
Right.
And so his
You're one of the
level
key
of
turners.
knowledge. No, he didn't go down to those.
I
levels.
did.
No, but
But
it's
he
like
saw-
you were next to the
I
teacher.
saw what did. I was enlisted officers turnkey,
Right.
but I did maintenance inside where they do that. But my children were introduced to things greater than guns at the time, and my kids grew up with guns in our home.
Nuclear weapons.
And Chris grew up with guns in the house, and he took NRA safety course in school in Wyoming. That was kind of a requirement class he was
It
in.
was.
And
Outdoor living.
I get it.
They taught
No, but I mean, you
to
know, I
fish
mean,
you had to have a
survivors-
license, to hunt you had to have a license, and they taught that us in the 9th grade. Outdoor living. We taught how to live in the snow in igloos. If we were to lose power and something were to happen, how to dig in the snow. And we actually, as a class, went and dug igloos. We took our coffee cans that we created into a grill, and we made hamburgers and hot dogs.
So they really taught you back to the land to live in.
Yes.
If,
So
if it came
I
down
could
to
survive.
it.
If
Right.
I had to, I could dig that hole. I can put my food in
That's
that
in
hole.
school. They taught
Yeah.
that in school. You don't. Kids now.
get that now.
They don't know how to run an iron. They don't know how to run an iron board. To set the iron on. They don't
know,
know
I
what to
get it.
set it on. They don't know how to cook.
Throw it in the dryer.
No.
Fan it out.
You know, I mean, our children are talking. But getting back to the original thing that happened here, I knew since he was 5 that he was gay.
I asked for Barbies in a Hawaiian Barbie topic set.
But I knew since he was 5. But my concern as a parent,
Oh,
I didn't know that.
No,
My
you
my thought as a parent was his safety. Was
Sure.
always about safety. AIDS was a big thing. His younger brother heard about AIDS, and he was freaking out that he would get AIDS from the air. So, I mean, back in the at that time, you can understand how the world was. Now, coming to Chris, and that night he called me. He did call me, and his phone died. And he Dad, I'm in a club called Pulse, and there's a shooting, and there's got to be 100 people shot. Bob,
Holy
and
shit.
I walked into the club. My phone was at 5%. I shut it off because I needed to know.
Bad gay man.
Right? But I needed to know how to get home because I had been out all day shopping, looking for the perfect shirt to go with the shorts that I had. I went to the movies with my roommates. We went to dinner. Like, I did not have a way to charge my phone. So from morning to night, I was running around.
Right.
And I was listening to Britney Spears getting ready for work, or to get ready to go out. I was the typical gay man that day, and I didn't have my phone. At 12:12 a.m., I turned on my phone because Jennifer International Lopez came on to perform, and she was singing "I Ain't Your Mama" by Jennifer Lopez. It was a new single at the time. My favorite song. I was listening to it all the
wanted to
time.
record it.
I wanted to record it. I was like, "Yes, RuPaul! Yes, I ain't your mama, no."
Right, we get it.
So her lips didn't quite move to the song, and to me, great performance, amazing, but know the lips, know the
Right.
words. But I couldn't discriminate. But at that time, I didn't want
No, I
I
get
didn't
it.
want to waste my 5%. But if it was the perfect 100% performance, I would have wasted my 5%. So then I screenshot, because I'm a number person, I screenshot 1212. So that's how I know. I have it on my phone. And I turned it off. Well, then when everything happens, and I was helping Juan Jose, or not Juan Jose, I'm sorry, Junior is another name. Junior, and I had the banana in his back, I took that moment to call my dad. And I said, this is what's going on, and then my phone died. So he got to hear everything with the way it was, and then not hear anything from me for 24 hours.
Your story is probably getting in the car and driving to Orlando.
my story was, I could have said a bunch of stuff, but oh shit was the biggest thing. I don't know how you can say other than you're in a shooting. I mean, you don't know nothing. I didn't know what the Pulse Club was.
He was on his
Understand-
oxygen machine.
I was on my CPAP machine, my sleeping pill. I mean,
I have one. I get it.
when he called me back the second time on somebody else's phone, I picked up the phone.
So I
Now,
did call
people
you.
who know me, I'll just pick up my phone if it rings all the time. But since that, I surely pick up my phone every time it rings because you don't know the number where it's coming from.
Right.
And if you have 5 children like me or family, I just pick up the phone. It's a lot of salespeople, but I always pick it up. But that night, imagine the second call he gave me and said, I'm on somebody else's phone. This is what's happening. And that was it. Now, it was a blur for me kind of after that. And then when when I talked to him the next day, then we got on the plane. And we just went, my wife and I, we just flew there, which is his stepmother, but his mom, if you ask him. But his mom
I
is
get
the
it.
name.
Yeah.
Okay.
He let us sit at the dinner table, asked us, "What do you think?" So we got to be at the same table eating dinner while he proposed to her. So it wasn't like this one-on-one thing.
Get it, yeah.
Since day one, it's always been family.
But it
Always.
was romantic, okay? It was Italian restaurant.
Whatever. You guys talk. We can talk about that another time.
No, okay. But we get to Florida, and when we got there, we got to see Chris, and it was a mess. Life was a mess. Remember, the president had called, well, didn't call, but they contacted him, wanted to meet the president. But he had 450 messages on his phone before you would get to the extra messages. He had all this stuff going on, people contacting. Now, there was so much support there. Now, the community of Orlando came together. That was before everything happened, you know. And then people started making videos of him not being, him being an actor. And that's another whole story, too. People made him to be an actor that he wasn't the actor. It was
Yeah,
real.
he
People
was
questioned
I was
his-
two different actors before I became my own hoax actor.
It was amazing.
I
But
was
anyway,
I was identified as two different people, and then my own crisis actor.
So then we're in the hotel, and he's in there, and it's a mess. We got to figure out how we food, figure out a room. The FBI, everybody got involved. Next thing you know, it's a terrorist act. So the FBI is calling and talking. So I have the FBI calling on the phone. I'm like, oh no. And then you're hearing all these stories of what really happened versus what's being released. And that was a gay club, and that some people, parents never claimed them. And you're just hearing these stories that were just ridiculous.
The
That as a
49th
parent,
recall that the sister had to claim because the parents refused to claim the body of the 49th. And that 49th's not even being represented on Pulse Memorial because the family will not allow the name to be on there. But he will be honored on the art project because art cannot be discriminated against.
But you can imagine being a parent, being a family, the other people there. Now, most people spoke Spanish. But we were there, and it turned out to be a good thing. Then we got paid back because it was a terrorist act. So I got paid back all the expenses. I didn't claim everything, but most of the expenses. But our country is amazing now that my son can go anywhere he wants to, speak whatever he wants to. Your radio show taking him on. I don't have to agree with everything that you're saying. You with me? I don't have to agree or disagree or respond. And you don't. But the thought that he can speak openly, that I can speak openly, that parents are allowed to be parents of children that are grown, they can love and respect their parents, and we can all have boundaries. And your show that has been, this is all wonderful that our country, everybody has the right to speak.
I don't want to ever. No, you don't have to agree with everything I say, by any stretch, and that is the beauty of our world as we know it today, is that you don't have to agree with what I have to say, and you can object to everything I say, and I can say, okay, you can object, but hear me out. So that is a great piece of liberty, right? But I agree with you 110%. And on this issue, though, this issue here, as children of, as gay and lesbian people, there are outside people all the time wanting us not to have that ability to say what we want, to do what we want, to love who we want. And your willingness to acknowledge that and acknowledge us is more important than agreeing with everything that I have to say.
But I would say, because this is important, when your child comes to you and says, I'm gay, he told the family, I already knew, so, but his mother, his birth mother. But I would say to this, if your child comes to you and says they're gay, last week I have a friend, she's in Missouri, and she said, if my child came home and told me they were gay, they couldn't come to my house. I had two choices, to agree, disagree, respond, or say what I wanted to say, but she had the right to say what she did, but it pissed me off.
Sure.
That pissed me off, but she had the right to say that. My child has the right to life and liberty and pursuit of happiness like anybody else. If a parent finds out their child's gay, I say, okay, you have a choice. This is rude, maybe. You can give them a gun, you can give them a knife, you can give them some pills, you can give them a car to drive off a bridge, you can give them whatever you do because you're so ashamed of your child. Or you can say, I love you unconditionally. Now that's what should be said. That's the love we share. We raise them. We bottle feed them. We take them to school. We take them with sick days. And how
And
could
we
you
change
disown
their
them?
baby diapers.
How can you disown your child, or somebody in your family disown your child that's a nephew or a niece, or hell, you don't even know if they're a nephew or a niece. They can't figure it out yet, you know. But in the point that you would disown somebody that you love, and that part is unknown to me. But I have to let people have their opinion. But I say, how could you let somebody? You can't let them dish your kids.
So I agree with you, and let me just. This is where I come from on this. Is we're because we have the ability and the capacity to change our minds and change our hearts. It's okay for me to hear you say, or to hear somebody else say, if my kid were to come out, I wouldn't allow them to come home, because we do have the capacity to change. And what my job is to live my life in an authentic manner, so that when you see me as I am, you begin to change your heart and your mind, and you recognize that, like you, I am a child of God, that I am worthy and whole and lovable in who I am. And we question whether or not that can actually take place, whether that actually happens, but I can tell you from my experience that 10 years ago, my father, the man that raised me, my stepfather, like you're probably a lot like your stepmother, from when I was 18 years old until now, my mother, when I told her I was gay, said, honey, we've known that for years. And I get that, because, I play with G.I. Joes.
I played with Barbies.
Right. So, but my father, my stepfather, who I love, said to me when I told him I was getting married, or I had gotten married, we had a small wedding and a huge reception a year later. And I invited him to the reception. He told me, and this is what he told me. Now, he said, my coming to your wedding would be a lot like coming to a drug dealer's house, and I don't approve of either one. And hearing that from the man who raised me, it was, well, at the time, you play tough, and you're like, well, okay, that's fine. But it's impacted my life for the last 10 years, and I'll tell you this. Things have changed between us. He now is very loving towards my daughter, who is 7, who I had with my wife. He's very loving towards her, and I think that those are the mechanisms. This love that we have for my wife and myself and my daughter is helping change him from who he was, and I see that, and that's the only thing that keeps me going in this situation. So when you hear that from your friend in Missouri, or from your friend who says that if my son came home, the only thing we can do is live our lives and hope that they themselves see our lives for who we are and our authenticity, and see that we are nothing to be afraid of or ashamed of.
Well, the reason I bring this to words is he left a book at my house one time many years ago, and so I read it. And then it was about a child that came out, what the parents had to go through when the child came out, about the community. You live in the community for 30 years, and your child is 20, they come out, and all your friends that went to church, and they don't have a gay child, everybody shuns you. Now, that didn't happen to us, and if it did, I wouldn't even acknowledge it, okay? But minds have to change, but in so many levels, and not just this. I mean, people just need to be open-minded.
Hearts.
I raise my children, all people are the same. Nobody's better than anybody else. So anything that goes on here is no better than what you believe, what you don't believe, okay? Whether you believe in God, whether you don't believe in God, you do what you want to. I raised you, there is one. I raised you, have the right to say what you want. All people are the same, okay?
He put us in church. He put us in scouts. He put dance. Like, he made sure, even as a single father before Connie, he did the best he could with work, and
that's all we can hope for.
And I remember he got a job at a movie theater, and I was our babysitter. I was watching Little Mermaid, and my brother was Rescuers Down Under. So it's like
you guys had the best.
We had the best babysitter. It was incredible, and we may not say that we appreciate it, but we still surely remember the good times as well as the bad. May not talk about the good times all at one time, but they are there. And my dad has been supportive with everything through everything, and I mean, I can go on and on and on with other things, but it's like it would have been nice if he could have helped me understand who I was at a young age. Like any parent, if they see that their child is different, or not different, but isn't going to be, their love is going to be a lot greater than other love that is known, that they could help give them the tools, the instruments of what to need. So now that's where we have to come in, you and I, is we have to be able to help those parents who don't know how to speak to their child who's gay until they come out. But really, you shouldn't have to wait for that out moment. You should be able to say, I know this is what's going on. Let's talk about this. Let's sit down and explain what's going on, because there's love, there's reading materials, and it even comes to sex. It's a lot different, because if you go out there and it's that time, what do you do? The right way or the wrong way? That could be the right way. But then again, guys can't get pregnant, girls can't get pregnant, but there's still that risk. Right?
Oh, we could die.
We could. I mean.
Anyway, that being said, that's another good. That's 4 shows you've given me, Christopher.
All right. Hey, I'm here.
It's 4 shows you've given me.
I'm here. I'm queer, and I'm staying.
That's right. Apparently. So the 12th. Thank you very much for coming in and talking. I really appreciate you saying what you said. But I will say this: the 12th here, Riverfront Park, bridges being lit up, 8 o'clock. Moms Demand Action
is our sponsor.
And,
Thank you so much, Moms Demand Action.
And the remembrance of the massacre of the Pulse nightclub.
Yes,
and the remembrance of all those who have lost their lives in the name because of their gender identity and or the person that they love.
Yes, and I also want to give a shout out to our editor who's going to create our video. Thank you, Nick, and all those behind the scenes, because they've been here. My parents, my family, you for bringing me onto the show. I appreciate this. All those back home in Orlando, the moms, the dads, the families, the friends, everybody who's been affected by this back home, because this is going to touch our hearts. And if there is a church out there, who, for the listeners out there who know that has a bell that is willing to ring it on the 12th, at noon, we would 49 times. We would love to have that happen. 49bells.org is the name of the website. You can go and sign your church up. 49bells.org, and we can have it to where we can show how many churches around the world are coming together to ring these bells, which is incredible. So
Christy reminded me, it's not I said the 12th. It's the 11th.
The 11th is the vigil. Yes.
Right. The 11th at 8 o'clock at Riverfront Park. Bridges lighting up. Moms Demand Action.
Thank you,
sponsored.
Christy.
Nick doing the video. There won't be. It's not going to be a huge lineup of speakers or anything like that. It's going to be a gathering.
Right. And if the mayor's here, or if there's any of those that are for LGBT rights and gun violence that want to talk, we're welcome to have them come out. But we would love to have everyone in the community involved, everyone. There's no discrimination here. There's none whatsoever. So if you are a human, you breathe life, you have love, come and watch the bridge light up, the sunset that's gonna be the most beautiful sunset here in Little Rock in 2018.
It's not supposed to rain, is it?
You know what? We're not going to speak that into existence, Sarah.
So no, it's not supposed to rain.
It's not supposed to rain. And if that's okay, then they're not going to rain on my parade. Bring an umbrella.
Even if it does rain, the bridge is
still lighting up, and I'm still going to be out there soaking wet with some. Well, I don't have
the
rain
11th.
boots.
The 11th on Monday. The 11th.
Monday the 11th, 8 p.m.
Right.
Little Rock Splash Zone. No,
Bad. Riverfront Park.
Riverfront
Be there.
Yes.
And we have gone way over time.
But we're an interesting show.
We are an interesting show. We're just a duo of all get out. Thank you very much for tuning in. This has been Politics Conviction with Chris and his father talking about the Pulse nightclub. And I got nothing. I don't even have a closing. I don't have anything to close with. Just go out and make the world a better place.
Love. Love is love. Love is love.
Love is love. Happy Pride Month.
Happy Pride.
And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great.
Was that great?
Great.
Was that great? Trista says, "Hey,
Sarah,
Bill."
The only thing is, I knew you were tearing up over here. I didn't have a camera over there to get your tears. You were with your back to the camera.
You should never have your back to the camera when we're on stage.
Guys, I wasn't tearing up on purpose. So it wasn't like
I know. So Shemin with the mural, she said, "Hey Chanson, much to share about how our
just
combined vision and passion is coming.
I do, yeah.
To
I do.
fruition,
That was
your heart
Yeah.
continues to
I
wanted
fuel
to
and
see-
guide Inspiration
I was in the
Orlando
military, in the Air
as it's
Force for
happening.
my whole career.
That will
I
be
spent a lot of
quite a profound
um,
moment at the bridge. Okay, but so anyway, so
the
they
pilots
have been
that
with
were
me all together.
in World War II
Oh, Michael
that
says,
were
thank you
planes
for the
that
great
Tuskegee
intro. I'm humbled. Our team just
I
got a
never get
print
to
of
see
the
any
mural,
shows
life
that would
size,
show their
and in
actual-
high DP.
their actual
So it
experience.
can be
When I was in
brought,
North Dakota, they had
so it can be brought lots of
B-17,
pieces for low
B-25
cost.
display.
Lots
All
have
the
grown
black
and
men were all
shaped
sitting out there, and I
into
grew up in Connecticut,
powerful things.
so
We
I
have to
grew
catch
in a
up.
different
Love you.
environment in the South.
So it's now been
Everybody
printed in
lived
full
together,
HD.
worked together, everybody was the same.
Cool.
John Whiteside, who's the
Italian,
political
white,
director of the
everybody,
Democratic
Puerto
Party,
Rican,
sent me
everybody was the
an
same,
email and said, I had no
Now-
idea this even existed.
When
What?
I interviewed
The
them for a
upstairs.
paper, I had to do a paper.
With the fire
and
at
I
the
actually
upstairs
had an
lounge.
Yeah, nobody knows it
instructor or
existed. Nobody
teacher that
knows.
was gay, and I had to do
1973, June
And
23rd, I
they
believe.
agree because the
Maybe.
military had a different understanding
24th.
of accepting gays and not. And so anyway, I ended up doing the English
Because
paper.
New Orleans
My
has their
paper,
pride the same
I
as New
interviewed
York.
these men, which had me change the paper.
And I was going to talk
For
about
what
the
they wanted about gays
the
in the
new
military. I turned it into
the new
uh,
Star. Star
say
is
Black
a
Conviction,
series
I
on
don't say anything
TV.
like that.
Oh, yeah,
Just
yeah,
men
yeah.
at the time
And
were young,
it's
and
beautiful.
they were
Queen
doing something
Latifah
they had to do.
and they have the girls that are on there.
But
They
their
went
side of
to
the story
they
was
sang
never
at
told.
Right.
New Orleans
I
Pride.
mean, what I'm saying is
Well,
true.
when they went to sing, there was a bomb threat. So then they had to lock themselves
If you give me
into
1 second,
into
somebody's
the
at
bars
door.
and
I'm
everything
gonna
and
let
do
them
what they
in
do.
because they're on the show.
And it was sad to see how they took a moment of terror into a moment of fun and excitement. Even though they were on lockdown, they still continued to show fun, even though they couldn't perform.
And this is it.
But
This is on the show?
this is on the Star. It's called Star,
I'm about to see it.
and you have it's the second to last episode, and it's on season 1, right? No, season 2. But I watch it. And it's a beautiful thing. But when they did the New Orleans Pride episode, it was absolutely beautiful because they have a daughter named Cotton who was transgender. Then they have the gay rights on there. They talk about every lifestyle you can think of on there, and it's absolutely a beautiful show.
That's
And
cool.
it's about music, love, acceptance, bringing together, and you've got the good and the bad. I should
cool.
probably go off live. Oh, Sherry, right? The first Pride Day in New Orleans history. So it happened. It happened in New Orleans. Grant says, "Keep doing what you were doing. Much love. I'm proud of you, Chris. Thank you." June 24th is when it happened. So Sherry's been listening. Thank you, Sherry, and thank you to all those out there who've tuned in. Appreciate it. I am here checking out, so thank you. Appreciate it. Wish I could be there. I'll be in Nashville, Tennessee next week. Oh, thank you. We'll continue to spread the love, Trista. Thank you, Trista. All right, bye.